Today, like we said, we are looking into the generic method of constructing base classifier for an ensemble system. If we all remember, we did mention in the past the idea of ensemble. We said that sometimes you try to develop a model using several or a particular machine learning algorithms. Even the best of machine learning algorithm does not guarantee that you are going to get acceptable results or your desired results in every problem you are solving. Because this is where the concept of data speaks comes in. See, the data you are processing will go a long way in determining how much of accuracy you are able to get. So sometimes you strive as much as possible to get, sometimes the best is not just coming. So in that case, we said we will have to move further, which we call it digging deeper into machine learning, try to see what can we do further that can enhance the performance we are looking for. Because you cannot guarantee that the data you are going to get is going to be good. So when the data is not speaking clearly to the machine learning algorithm to understand, so the algorithm couldn't figure out what are the hidden patterns in your data. You try several algorithms, you try tuning several tuning parameter feature selection, it doesn't work out. You don't give up, but rather you move towards what we call ensemble or hybrid, as the case might be. But we are starting with ensemble. And the idea is very simple. I like to, again, use this particular illustration for us. So we discussed this earlier. See, this is an ensemble. In this kind of ensemble, so we can see that we have the reality of the system, and then we have individual predictive model that have been built. So after building the model, we can see that none of them is close to what we are expecting. See, however, as low as the performance of individual models low, we can take advantage of them and try to do something even with what we have now, presently. Now, so if you look at this, this is the output. This is what we want to predict. This is cloudy, it's not cloudy. The kid can go out to play, they can go to play. No, they cannot play today, they cannot play today. It's like an application that can predict if it is good for the children to go play or not. So these are the output we want from our model. However, this is model number one. It's getting this correctly. It's missing this, it's missing this. It's getting, when you look at it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out of 7 is getting only 4 correctly, which is like 57.14% accuracy, which is very low. We train another model. This one is making mistake here. See, the mistake is from here, but this one is making another mistake. It's getting this correctly. This one is getting 3. Sorry, it's getting 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's getting 4 correctly out of 7. Another 57.414. It continues until we train, let's say, 5 models. And we told her it can be as much as we want. 1,000, now 155. Keep going. But now, for an hypothetical example, we use just only 5 models. This model improve. It's getting correctly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 out of 7. That is 71.43%. However, none of them is closer to what we want, actually. We always look for the perfect, which is 100% accuracy. Even if we cannot achieve 100% predictive accuracy, at least something closer, 97, 98, 99, not 71. So looking at all these 5 models, none of them is even closer to the ideal that we want. So now we try to combine them. This is the ensemble concept we are talking about. So we want to use simple majority voting, which is one of the simplest ensemble techniques you can use. So what then happened? So you try to vote, Okay, this one is predicting cloudy, 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 4 against 1. So we go for, the answer is going to be, the final model is going to be cloudy because 4 people voted for, predicted it's going to be cloudy. So majority carries the vote. So when we do it for this one again, 3 against 2, 3 against 2, you find out at the end of the voting process, we ended up getting 100%. That is the power of Ensemble. See, even though none of them is closer to even 90%, not even 80%. But today, at the end of the day, we are getting 100% accuracy. How come? That is the power of Ensemble we are talking about. That sometimes when you do modeling, your data is so complicated that there's no single algorithm that can understand the hidden pattern in your data. Then my message is don't lose hope. Move further. Dig deeper into machine learning. Try to see some other possibilities. One of those possibilities is to use Ensemble System. So we discussed Ensemble Systems, the justification, why do we need it? Why does it work? Why is it able to perform this kind of wonder from 71% maximum accuracy for individual to 100%? It is possible in real life. I train like 157 models, and I want to combine all of them together to give me hopefully better results. We gave a lot of real-life examples, real-life scenarios that demonstrated that indeed Ensemble is always better. Even in our day-to-day activities as human beings, when you do a consultation among yourselves, you brainstorm, teamwork. What an individual cannot do, a team will successfully do it. We have seen several cases like that. That is the idea of Ensemble. So that is why, for those that are new, we can try to check out our first 2 videos on Ensemble. You see a lot of justifications, a lot of demonstration of ideas, practical real-life situations that supported the concept of it. Now, having done that, we now move further to say that, okay, there are like a couple of steps when you want to build an Ensemble. So you first of all need to generate what we call base classifiers. Because the idea is we have sets of classifiers that you want to combine. Let's say we decided to model. Okay, let's have classifier 1 here. This is C1, and that classifier is here. C2, and that classifier is here. C3. I want to only train classifiers. So I supply them with the needed input. So this one generates its own result. This one generates another result. This one generates another result. Then have a voting. If maybe I want to use voting. So whatever you have, like just demonstrated earlier. So we vote. This one is saying, okay, this is yes. This is yes, and this one is saying no. So we say, okay, we go for the one majority, 2 against 1. So there are other, this is simple majority voting. Sometimes we go for boosting. We say, okay, if this guy is a more accurate classifier, a single vote here is times 3. See? Or let's assume that this guy who is saying no is a renowned professor of medicine or very excellent classifier. A single vote from this classifier is times 3. Even though this guy said no, say yes, we are still going to go for no as the final answer because a single full vote from this guy is 3 times 3. This is called boosting. In which case, we don't assume everybody have the same ranking capability. We give them weight according to their accuracy or the trust we have in them. Maybe after training, this one had like 50% accuracy, this one like 55% accuracy, but this guy is having like 99% accuracy. So we felt that the possibility of this guy making mistake is very low, so we give it 3 times 3. A single vote from it is going to be multiplied by 3. Why other guy here, a single vote will be 1, this one also is times 1. So at the end of the day, if when the 2 of them said yes, this guy said no, the answer is going to be no. This is boosting. And then we talk about stacking and some other method. We come back to them individually later on. However, today what we want to talk about is what are the way of constructing these base classifiers? These are the one we call base classifier, these guys. How do we construct them? Because these are very important. They are individual models. It is the outcome of this model that we have to combine later. So forget about the combination now. We talk about the method of combining. Is it simple majority voting, boosting, stacking? We'll come back to that. How do you combine them? This is the question that we want to answer today. How do you combine them? Sorry, how do you generate these individual models? Before we used to call them weak learners. Weak learners. Individual, this is a weak learner, another weak learner, another weak learner. Because in reality, an individual is weak. No matter how powerful you are, when you compete against other group of people that are as good as you, you will find out that you are nowhere to be found. Because they're going to use that power of grouping to defeat you. So now we want to see, okay, how are we going to build this individual? How do we build them? So this is why the first thing when you want to build an ensemble is we first of all construct a set of base classifier. We call them weak learner, or we call them base learners. Base, these are the base. This is where we're coming from. Without these guys individually developed, you cannot be talking of any combination. So this is the starting point. So how do you build them? How do I create C1, C2, C3? So we have 4 generic ways of creating these models. One, we have manipulating the training set. We try to play with training sets. We try to manipulate the input features. We can also try to manipulate the class labels. And sometimes we might try to manipulate the learning algorithms. These are the 4 generic methods of building base learners or weak learners, as we might want to call it. Now we're going to take them one after the other. The first one is manipulating training set as a means of generating base learner. What do we mean by this? You have a training set that has been given to you. Maybe, so we try to create different samples using resampling methods. You resample the methods according to some sampling distribution. So that we discussed it also earlier. I used the opportunity to clarify what is sampling method. We have sampling with replacement. We have sampling without replacement. So you can choose to use whichever method, depending on the kind of ensemble you want to build. So it means when we partition the data every time, we are ending up with different data set for training. Sometimes, if it is with replacement, it means you can allow a particular data point to be selected more than one time, 2, 3, 4 times, depending on the kind of method you are using. If it is without replacement, it means every data point must be selected only once. So once you decide which kind of sampling method, then we're going to generate different sample. For the C1, C2, C3, we use a different sample for this one, another sample for this one, another sample for this one. So each of them will be trained with different sample of the data, the same data, but now we are resampling them. So the sampling distribution will help us to determine how likely is it that an example will be selected for training, which may vary from trial to another. Sometimes data point number 2 is used for training. Another time is going to be used for testing, as we're going to see in detail also later on, inshallah. Now, so when you have this system, you build each classifier from each training set using a particular learning algorithm. We have a learning algorithm we have selected. This one is flexible. I can decide to say, okay, all the algorithm here, they are from neural network. Neural network, this algorithm I've selected. So this neural network number 1, I train it with sampling outcome 1. The same neural network, I'm training it with another sampling outcome 2. So you see the same algorithm is being trained with different sample of the data set. So because you are training with a different sample of this data set, you are going to end up generating a different hypothesis function. Hypothesis function, which is different, which I told you earlier, a different hypothesis function H or F, as the case may be. So this one ended up with having F1, this one ended up having F2, this one ended up having F3. It is this function which is the model now. Some people call it model. or hypothesis function. It is this model now we want to combine later on. But then we are more concerned with how do you generate the base learner for now. So we use resampling. So in the resampling method, like I said, we discussed it earlier, it's either bagging or boosting. Don't confuse this with bagging and boosting when it comes to combination. You see, there's bagging and boosting also when you are doing resampling of data. It's a different concept, but something similar among them. So when we are going to combine, there's another thing called bagging and boosting. We're not talking of that. So in the bagging and boosting for data resampling, in bagging, it means all the data, they have the same, they're on the same level. No data is given an advantage over the other data points. But in boosting, you feel that, oh, there's one data that we don't want to make missing on it. Let us repeat that data multiple times. We are going to see when we are going to go into how to combine ensemble. We'll talk about them in details, inshallah. So this is the first method. You try to resample the data as many times as you want, depending on the number of base learners you want to develop. Next is the one we call manipulating input features. So another way of developing or building different classifier is to play with your features. Now, one way of doing it is to look for subset of input feature chosen to form each training set. We use this especially if the number of features are so huge. Maybe I'm invited to come and develop, I've been invited to come and develop an application for a company and they produce like maybe 250 attributes or predictors or features. 250 is more. So it's okay. I can think of ensemble. This is one of the area we explained also earlier, one of the justification for ensemble. When the number of features are too much, it might be impossible for any single algorithm to be able to understand those huge number of features and get something reasonable, especially if the number of samples we are having is not much. Because the more the number of samples, so the more the number of features you have, the more the number of samples that you need to get reasonable result, which is what we refer to as the cost of dimensionality. We also discussed this before. The cost of dimensionality. That is, the more the dimension of your data increases, especially in terms of number of features, the more the number of samples you need. But in reality, the number of samples are usually limited. You can have a company that has like 250 variables with just only 1,000 samples. And when you're having 250 variables, we are expecting to have something in the range of 10 raised to the power 250 samples, which is not possible in most cases. So in that case, we go for this kind of ensemble. We try to use, okay, let me use 25, the first 20 or first 10 of these attributes. Let me use it to train this first one. Classifier 1 will be trained with the first 10. Classifier 2 will be trained with the second 10. We take different features to train different classifiers. So imagine if I divide 250 by 10, I'm going to end up having 25 base classifiers. So I keep taking 10, 10 to build new classifiers. So at the end of the day, I'm now going to use the outcome of each of these classifiers now, 25 now, because I'm training each model using 10 features. Then I'm going to have it later. We are going to combine the result from them. Pay attention to this. So we are interested for now. How do you build this one? So this is the second method of building it. The first one is resampling. The second one now is manipulating the input features. You play with the features. Now, we said this subset we are selecting, it could be selected randomly, or it could be based on input from domain experts. Maybe I want to develop for medical experts related to medical application. I can sit down with medical doctors. This huge number of features you have, do you think they are related together? What can you give for? They say, okay, these three might work together. They are related somehow. Okay, I use those three to build one classifier. He said, these other three, maybe they work together. I use those three again to build another one. So you can take it from an expert, and then you can also do it randomly. Even though, if the time permits, it's always good to let the data speak. we told us several times, this is the major problem people have when you're building machine learning application and you depend too much on your personal previous knowledge. We might miss up important information in the data. So that's why this let the data speak. Let the data speak. That is why if I have such expert opinion, it's good. I appreciate the opinion of experts. We will build it based on the expert opinion. We will also try to develop under control experiment where we're going to build those models, not following the expert opinion, but doing it randomly. Then we combine the two together. We have seen cases where the expert opinion-based system developed is better than the one done randomly. But we have seen where the one done randomly is better than that of the expert opinion. That is why when you have to do it, we always give room for trying different options. Otherwise, we might miss this important principle, let the data speak. Because that is one of the major problems that machine learning comes to solve. That there are a lot of information in our data, our day-to-day data set that we've been collecting, they're just wasting away. Let's bring this data here. Let's try to see what we can make out of this data. So we plug it into our machine learning algorithm. Let them try to understand the data pattern. Maybe they can build a model that can be used as a predictive solution for the next incoming data that are related to what we have developed. Now, so we always pay attention to that so that we don't lose touch with that reality. Otherwise, we might end up having a solution. Yes, it's good, but we miss a better solution. Now, so that's why you can use expert opinion. You can also use random. I like to use the two because I believe in combination of things. I use expert opinion, I use random. I also try to mix the two together in an hybrid setting and then see what we can produce. Usually, this is recommended more. It is better for data that has redundant features. When you have redundant features, this is one of the things that is recommended. They just give you data set, you notice there's date of birth and there's age. This is redundant feature because you can get age from date of birth. See, so when we want to use it, we don't want the two of them to be together because these are redundant features. But then we can use age when we are building classifier 1. And then we can use date of birth when we are building classifier 2. That is the difference. So when you have redundant features, this kind of manipulation of input feature is a good way of building base learners. And a popular example in this respect is the one we call decision tree, which is built from decision tree. We call it a random forest. Decision tree is a very popular machine learning algorithm. Very popular, I usually recommend when you are building for people from the industry or people who are not in computing science field. It's a very good option to consider because it's easier for them to understand what you are doing. See, it's represented in the form of a tree. We discussed it earlier. We can try to make the video available. We can also go over it later on because it's easier to visualize, to quickly understand how it works. So then they build random forest is now when you have a tree, we have a tree here, we build it down. You get there, you take another decision. You keep building the tree. It's an inverted natural tree, normal tree grow up, but this decision tree, it goes down. Yeah. So we now build random forest. It's a forest that is built from randomly generated different decision tree. Now they now call it random forest because a forest is made up of several trees. That's where the name came from. A random forest is made of several trees built at random using a particular technique, which is decision tree-based ensemble. So random forest and ensemble techniques that has been built from decision tree. Now, so at every point in time, they are selecting different features to build the tree. That is why it's a good example of when you are generating base learner using manipulation of input features. So in random forest, at the beginning now, they can select age as the first. The next time, they can select length or weight as the first input to go for. So that's why we call it random forest. It is randomly selected during the building process. Now, this is the second way. The first one is sampling. The second one is manipulating the input feature. The next one is manipulating the class labels. See, we use this when the number of features are when the number of classes are sufficiently large. Sometimes you are given a problem to solve, and you find out that there are so many classes involved, 25 classes. You need to assign this data point to any of these 25 classes. Usually, this is very challenging. This is very, very challenging. So, because the more the number of features, the more difficult for you to get accurate results. Binary classifier is the simplest. So where I want to decide if a patient is having diabetes or not. That is a yes or no answer. And that is the basis of classification system. It was later that the idea of multi-classes came up. Okay, see? Okay, the COVID-19 modeling, is the patient going to be normal, mild, moderate, complicated, or critically complicated? 4 classes. Or I want to predict the grade of a student in a class. It's going to be A plus, B plus, C plus, E plus, F. I don't know if you have F plus, and host of others. So when you have so many classes and you are not really getting through with what you need in the number of and kind of accuracy, this might be one thing to start thinking about. So when the number of classes is sufficiently large, then we try to partition the problem into subgroups so that each classifier will be trained to identify subgroups. We have 26 classes to identify. Can I build a classifier that is going to be like 26? I can build like 13 binary classifiers. You see? Each classifier will handle two classes. Separate A and B. You separate B and C. You separate D and E. We keep building it repeatedly like that. So the training data is transformed into a binary class problem by randomly partitioning the class labels into 2 disjoint subsets, A0, A1. So we start building them into 2 disjoint sets. It's a multi-class problem, but we break them into binary. And then, so the relabel example are used to train the base classifier. So in case, okay, I can start with pass or fail. When I separate people that fail, it means F is out of it. You see, I separate pass or fail. I know anybody that failed is scored less than the minimum mark. That is F. Class F is already separated. Then I move up again. So we keep turning the data into 2 classes, pass and fail. Okay, did he get A or not? He got an A or not. Everybody that doesn't get A belongs to the class, second class. The one that got an A belongs to class 1. We keep partitioning into 2 repeatedly. So by repeating the class labeling and model building steps several times, ensemble of base classifier is obtained. So this is the idea of manipulating class labels. We use this when the number of classes is sufficiently large. Then, just run the experiment. Of course, it's good to try it. Don't just go start building ensemble. Build individual classifier. You yourself will see that maybe you're not getting excellent results. It is time to start thinking of manipulating the class labels, which means I want to turn them into several binary classification problems. And hopefully, the ensemble system will solve the problem in a better way. That is the third one. We can resample. We can try to manipulate the input features, and then you might try to even manipulate the class labels. Next one is generative-based learners using manipulation of learning algorithms. So in this example, we want to manipulate the learning algorithms themselves. We are not talking of manipulating just resampling data, no. We can fix the data. We are not talking of manipulating input feature, no. We are not talking of manipulating class labels, no. We want to manipulate the algorithms themselves. You see? So what do we mean in this case is that there are a couple of algorithms that are very unstable. So these algorithms are potential ones that you can easily manipulate them to get different models from them. Now, for example, in neural network, it's one of the forerunner. It can produce different models by changing the network topology. So we have a neural network, We receive result from outside, X1, X2, X3. This is our input coming in, but this is the aiding layer. It has only 2 aiding layers. Sorry, the aiding neuron in the layer here. So you have here 2 hidden layers. This one connected to this. This one is connected to this. Every input is connected to the layer inside. Yeah. Now, this is a network. Even though 3 inputs are coming in, there are only 2 hidden neurons. 2 hidden neurons. 2 hidden neurons inside the innermost layer, the middle layer, which we call the hidden layer. So this is input layer, neural network, input layer. And then there's going to be an output here where you're going to have your final result. This is the output layer. So in the hidden layer here, I have 2 hidden neurons. I might decide to change it to 3. So when I build the first model, this is called manipulating learning algorithm. The first model I'm building, this is called F1. This is my first model, model F1. I'm using only 2 hidden neurons. In the second model, I'm going to use 3. The same thing, instead of 2, I'm changing it to become 3 inside. In that case, it's going to be F2, another model entirely. By changing the number of hidden neurons, you are building a new model because the process is going to be totally different, resulting in a different hypothesis function. Sometimes I might decide to, because this hidden layer is only 1. This is only 1 hidden layer. I'm changing the number of neurons. This is 3. I can make it 4 next time. I can make it 5. I can keep going. There's no limit to the number you can go. So imagine the number of base learner you can build by manipulating it. And this is one manipulation. Once I'm done with building the number I want, I come back again and say, okay, instead of having 2 hidden layers, I want to have, 1 hidden layer. This is 1 hidden layer with 2 hidden neurons. I want to have 2 hidden layers. I create another one here with another 2 also. This is connected to this. Now this is 2, this is hidden layer 1, this is hidden layer 2. This is another topology entirely. So I've manipulated it again. Then it's going to generate, even though it was 2 to like previous one, but the fact that I'm adding a new hidden layer to make it 2 hidden layer now, it is totally going to be different from what I did before. I can decide to make it 3 hidden layer. It can be 4 hidden layer. Any number of layer that is between the input and the output. We call it number of hidden layer. In each hidden layer, I can keep changing the number of hidden neurons. You can see that the manipulation is kind of infinity. I can keep going manipulating and manipulating. So this is what we mean by manipulating learning algorithms. So when you change the topology of a machine learning algorithms, it produces a totally new hypothesis function, which is the idea of an ensemble, of building an ensemble. We want the base learner to be as different as possible, either by resampling or by manipulating the input feature or by manipulating the target class. And now we are talking about manipulating the learning algorithm itself. We try to change the topology. Now, so we do this by changing the vital parameters of the algorithms. An example is given here, like decision tree. I just mentioned it. The basic way of constructing decision tree is you choose the best when you are going to select the next split. See, I think I indicated it just here. Yeah, this is an example of a decision tree here. When I'm here, maybe I'm using age. So decide which one should I use? There's a test I have to check. I have like 5 features. Which feature should I choose first to start? We will calculate the gain, the information gain. Which one is likely to give me better result? So I'm going to start based on that information gain result. So I selected age. Then when I divide the data into 2, is the age greater than 60 years? Yes, you go this side. No, you go this side. Now I need to decide what is the next variable to use. Should it be the weight or the blood reading, I mean, the sugar reading, or what other attribute should I use? I will calculate the information gain again, and I will select which attribute should be selected as at this point. The same thing goes on until condition for termination got reached. Now, but rather than doing that in building Ensemble, we are saying that instead of using this best split approach, we choose random attributes. See, we construct the attribute, we construct the model by introducing randomness into the tree growing procedure. So instead of saying, okay, which one is better, age or weight, we just switch at random. I build one, I start with age. I build the second one, I start with weight. The next one, I start with blood sugar. I keep starting at random just to make sure that the outcome is different. Because the idea is that if you make your base learner to be as different as possible, you might end up having this kind of problem, this kind of system. It's not a problem, it could be a solution actually. That is, a system whereby the mistake that this guy is making is not the mistake that this guy is making. You can see, this is the idea of Ensemble. When you're building the base learner, we want to make sure that all of them are not making the same mistake. Because if each of these models, if they are all making the same mistake, we cannot achieve this 100%. So our Ensemble will fail. So that is why we want to produce a base learner, a weak learner, that each of them will learn in a different way, so that if one is making a mistake, another is getting that mistaken data point. That's why you see here, only 2 guys made mistake in this column. 2 of them make mistake here. 2 of them make mistake here. The mistakes are distributed randomly. That is why we were able to achieve 100%. Imagine if all of them are making mistake at the same time. In that case, you will find out that we might not be able to achieve what we want. So this is idea of trying to build different base learners by either resampling or try to manipulate the input feature or try to manipulate the class labels, and finally try to manipulate the learning algorithms. So those are the 4 methods of building base learners. So when you want to build an ensemble, you have to decide, okay, how do I build my ensemble? And the good thing is, you can use combination of these approaches. You can build 15, maybe we want to build an ensemble now. We can distribute among ourselves in the class. Okay, let's 2 people, let's 5 volunteer build using manipulating learning algorithms. Okay, you go build your own using, do you have redundant features? Yes. Okay, you build your own using this. What of manipulating resampling method? You build your own using the resampling method. We bring everything together. This is called what I call hybrid ensemble system. We are hybridizing the means of building the base learners. Because the idea is to expose our combination system later to base learners that have gotten different idea about the data set. And that was why we show us a diagram of a very big elephant. That to understand that elephant, you need different models to be able to understand different parts of the elephant, and they can all come together and they can summarize for us and hopefully get excellent results. So those are the 4 generic ways of building an ensemble. In summary, we said the first 3 approaches are generic. Generic in the sense that we can apply it to any classifier. That is, manipulating the data set by resampling, manipulating the input feature by using different portion of input features, or try to manipulate the class label itself. And I already explained to us the condition where we need to do each of them. Now, this 3 can be used for any ensemble building or for any classifier. However, the 4th approach depends on the type of classifier used. You see, there are some classifiers that are considered to be very stable. That when you change the parameter a little bit, it might not even change. However, there are classifiers that are considered to be very, very unstable. Change small thing there now, everything will change. These are kind of algorithms that are very amenable to that. For example, naive Bayes has no parameter. There's no parameter for you to manipulate naive Bayes. You want to use naive Bayes algorithm. It's based on probability. So Naive-Bayes algorithm has no parameter. There's no single parameter for you to optimize. So the idea of changing the parameter of Naive-Bayes does not even arise. So it's not viable for manipulating learning algorithms. That's the point we are trying to make. Whereas there are other algorithms that have so many parameters. So keep changing the parameter, you end up with different hypothesis function. So now, and then another point worth noting is that base classifier can be generated sequentially or in parallel, which we are going to explain later as we move on. It could be in parallel. Parallel in the sense that each student, if you want to build an ensemble now, I say everybody should go home, I give you the same data set. I said, go and build your own classifier using any approach you want. Then you bring the result later, then we're going to vote based on that particular result. This is called parallel ensemble building system. We are in parallel. I'm not waiting for you to finish your own before I build my own. Everybody goes in parallel. And then sometimes it could be sequential. Sequential means, especially in resampling, in boosting method, we use sequential, as we are going to see later, inshallah. Because in sequential, we want to see the outcome of previous model before we know how to build the next model. See, if we find out that that model is making lots of mistakes in the previous one, in a particular data point, we try to increase the number of occurrence of that data point in the next classifier to be built after that. So when the outcome of one classifier affects the next base classifier to be built, we say this is sequential base learner development system. So depending on the kind of problem we're solving, we decide at the appropriate time. We said ensemble works better with unstable classifier. This is a point to note. That is, generally, when you talk of ensemble, when you have classifiers that are not stable, that is, classifier that when you change something, they generate a new hypothesis function. But there's some classifier, no matter what, you don't even have anything to change. And there are few, even when you change things, it doesn't have much effect on them. They might not be able to give you diversified base learners. Like I said, ensemble want base learners that are having capability of recognizing the data. And if at all they are going to make mistake, the mistake is not going to be the same thing. Because if all of them are making the same mistake, then the concept of voting will not even arise. It means that mistake will be generated, will be generalized across board, which we don't want. We want a situation whereby if Adam is missing, is making a mistake in a point, and the other doctor should not make a mistake. So two of them who doesn't make mistake, we cancel my mistake. If I'm right somewhere, another person is making a mistake somewhere, my own correctness and the other guy's correctness might cancel another person's mistake. This is the idea of ensemble. We say classifiers are said to be unstable if they are very sensitive to minor perturbation in the training set. That is, you change the training set a little bit, even just resample. Some machine learning algorithm will totally produce a new hypothesis function. We say, okay, they are unstable. By just changing the data set, they are in another hypothesis function state, which is good. It's good for you because it's going to generate different base learner for you repeatedly. Example of some of the unstable classifiers are decision tree, rule-based systems, and artificial neural network. These are those that are considered to be unstable classifiers by their attributes. Change something, you start, if you are building the tree classifier I just told you, if you start with age, as you can see, you are going to arrive at different results. If you start with weight first, I decided not to start with age, you get different results. This is the idea. Those kind of classifiers are considered to be unstable, and they are very good potential, they are good candidates for ensemble. Maybe somebody will wonder, if something is not stable, it's not a good attribute. Yeah, you can say something is not stable, it's not a good attribute, but everybody has his own day. So when you want to build ensemble, those unstable classifier becomes the real guy to look out for, because they're going to make it possible for you to generate base learners that are diversified, making sure that the mistake they are making is not going to be the same. By so doing, they are going to be able to use cooperative capability to produce better outcome. So those are the 4 generic approach and the idea. Something I would just add there, because I mentioned it, is when we are building Ensemble, it can be serial and it could be in parallel. You can see here. So in the serial one here, so I want to build an Ensemble A. When I'm building this is a base classifier. When I'm building this base classifier, I cannot build this one until I finish this one, because I want to see how this one is going to perform. If I notice there's a data point, maybe data point number 2 is being mistakenly classified here. In the next one I'm going to build, the next base classifier I'm going to build, I'll make sure that I repeat this in the sampling I will do. I will repeat this sample many times, maybe 4 or 5 times, to force this guy to be able to understand the hidden information in this data point. Why is it being misclassified by the previous guy? If after building this one, I also notice there's another point that has been misclassified, I will increase the possibility of selecting it multiple times for the next base classifier to be built. So we keep doing that until we arrive at expert N, which is the classifier N now. And finally, we take all of them and then combine them in our voting system. So popular example here is known as boosting. We look at what happened previously before we build the next base learner. The only disadvantage is that, of course, it's going to take a lot of time. Imagine I ask you to wait for me to finish my own model before you start your own. So it's very restrictive. It has its own advantage in some area and also disadvantages, as we are going to see. However, the next one, which I so personally like to do, is the parallel one. You go in parallel. You go build your classifier. We don't depend on your own output for me to build mine. So these are classifier, or as you want it, experts. So we build this one. This is built by Adam. This is built by maybe Dr. Tijani. This is built by Dr. Rashid, and up to N. N can be as big as possible. We want to build ensemble of up to maybe 255. So I say, okay, I want volunteers. We give you the data set. You go and build 10-10 or 25-25 and come back by next week and show us the result. Then we now combine the result. So you can see once you have your result here, everybody will supply their result. Then the combining strategy will now use your result to combine it together. So what are the combining strategy that we have to use? What we have discussed is how to build the base learners. These are base learners. These are the guys that we combine. You want to combine the result later. So today we have discussed how to build them. And it could be in series, or it could be in parallel. The advantage of the parallel is that it's very fast. Your work is not going to hinder my own work. Everybody go his own way. And then we only bring out the outputs and then we combine them later on. Now, how do we combine them? This is one of the topics we are going to take next. But before then, we're going to look into it. Once we are building these experts, should they be of the same classifier? Should they be all neural network? Or can we have neural network here? Can we have SVM here? Can we have decision tree here? Can we have naive-Bayes here? So we're going to answer the question later on next week by the grace of God. So how far can we go in that particular sense? So that the neural network you have here, can we use SVM here? Of course, based on our previous classes, we made it clear that based on real-life examples, it is recommended to have different classifiers so that you are having different opinion of people of different background. So if I want to form a team, of course, it's good to have a team of experts in that field, but it's always good also to have few people from outside that team so that they can bring in a kind of heterogeneous knowledge into the table, for discussion. Otherwise, I want to develop an application that can take medical informatics to the next level, and it's full of just people that are medical doctor and computer science guys. It's good to have business-oriented guys that will come in. Few of them, let us think together. So while the computer science guy is trying to come up from computer point of view, the medical doctor are trying to talk to us from the point of medical point of view, let another guy be thinking of the business implication of what we are talking about. That is why it is recommended that when you are building these different base learners, it is good to let them be from different classifier type. So I have neural network here, I have support vector machine here, and so many other ones. How do we do this? What will determine whether you are going to use the same or not the same. If you are going to use the same, then you need to make sure the information coming to it are totally different, or you are building them in a different way. So these are some of the questions that we're going to answer by the grace of God next week. So this is where we're going to call it a day. We'll be able to discuss the 4 basic ways of building your base learners. And I hope we take note of all the 4. So starting with try to do resampling, manipulating the training set, the data set itself directly by resampling. Try to manipulate the input features, then try to manipulate the class labels. And 4th, which is the last but not the least, try to manipulate the algorithms themselves. Change the parameters of the algorithm so that you can get a new classifier at every training of that same algorithm. So thank you very much. This is how we're going to have it. If you have any question, so we can take a few questions before we call it a day. Thank you.